Alright, hi guys, Blazer here, and today I'm going to be doing a Retribution Paladin PvP guide. We're going to go over all of the talents, abilities, rotation, enchants, the stats, and the macros that I use. Alright, so let's get into the talents first. Alright, so here's the talent tree. Now, the first three things you're gonna get is Lay on Hands, because this is very useful in PvP and battlegrounds, and it's also usable now in arenas. Then Blessing of Freedom, so you can get away from all of those slows and CCs. Then next is Hammer of Wrath. You're gonna need this most of all. And Obduracy, Retribution Aura. Greater Judgment is going to cause the target to take 20% increased damage from your holy power abilities. Now, Divine Steed, we're going to want 2 maximum charges because one's not enough when you're chasing down casters and they are trying to run away from you and all that. So we're going to go with 2 Divine Steeds. Now, Fist of Justice. Each holy power spent reduces the remaining cooldown on Hammer of Justice. So basically, every time you cast Final Verdict, this reduces the cooldown on Hammer of Justice faster, which allows you to get it off of cooldown much quickly. And next is Season the Warhorse. Increases the duration of Divine Steed by 2 seconds. Now, we're going to go with Holy Aegis. Armor and critical strike chance increased by 4%. We're going to need that. Then, Avenging Wrath. This is your main ability when it comes to doing damage. This is like basically your best burst ability of all. Now, Justification. Judgment's damage is increased by 10%. We're going to need that too. And very, very importantly, spec into Rebuke, because you're going to use this to interrupt all those healers, to interrupt all those spellcasters, which is very important. Please get Rebuke. Then Punishment. Successfully interrupting an enemy with Rebuke casts an extra Crusader Strike, so you could get that too. Blessing of Freedom increases movement speed by 30%. So basically you're gonna need this also. It increases your movement speed while getting away from those slows and those CCs. Blessing of Protection. This is another useful spell when it comes to saving a party member in arenas or in battlegrounds, or you could even use it on yourself. Next is Sanctified Plates. Armor increased by 20% and stamina increased by 10%. Now you're going to need this. And damage reduction from area of effects attacks reduced by 10%. Now we're going to go with Crusader's Reprieve. Increase the range of your Crusader Strike, Rebuke, and auto attacks by 3 yards, which this can be very helpful with casters if they're kind of ranging you or a bit away from you. Now, Unbreakable Spirit reduces the cooldown of your Divine Shield, Shield of Vengeance, Divine Protection, and Lay on Hands by 30%, so we could go into that. That's going to be very useful for the cooldowns. Then Seal of Might. Mastery increased by 4% and Strength increased by 4%. Then Seal of Alacrity. Haste increased by 4% and Judgment cooldown reduced by 1 second. Now, this is also good too against like melee Faith's armor. Word of Glory is going to grant you a 20% bonus armor for 4 seconds. And this can be useful against melee that are attacking you and all that, so it'll reduce the damage they do to you for a little bit. Your auto attacks deal 1,755 additional holy damage. So just spec into that one time. Now, another main ability is going to be Divine Toll. This, you must spec into this. And then there is Of Dusk and Dawn. You're going to need this also. And for this, you're going to spec into Fading Light. Blessing of Dawn increases the damage and healing of your next holy power spending ability by 10%. So this is useful with Word of Glory getting its healing increased, or Final Verdict for getting its damage increase. Now, we're going to go into the Retribution talent tree. Okay, for the Retribution talent tree, you're going to go into Blade of Justice and get Divine Storm. This is going to be useful when there are multiple enemies in battlegrounds. You could use that. And next into Expurgation. Your Blade of Justice causes the target to burn for 25,000 radiant damage over 9 seconds. Then next is Swift Justice. Reduces the cooldown of Judgment by 2 seconds and Crusader Strike by 2 seconds. So this is going to take your Crusader Strike off of cooldown much faster. Then we're going to go into Final Verdict. Next is Jurisdiction. Then next is Inquisitor's Eyrie. Then Blade of Justice now has 2 charges. Improved Blade of Justice. So get that one. Next is Templar's Verdict. Final Verdict and Justicar's Vengeance have a 20% chance to reset the cooldown of Blade of Justice. So you're going to need this one also. Zealot's Fervor. Auto attack speed increased by 20%. So get this. This is going to be useful for your auto attack. Rush of Light. The critical strikes of your damaging single target holy power abilities grant you 5% haste for 10 seconds. Next is Blade of Vengeance. Blade of Justice now hits nearby enemies for 21,000 holy damage, but deals reduced damage beyond 5 targets. Next, we're going to go into Blessed Champion. Crusader Strike and Judgment hit an additional 4 targets, but deal 50% reduced damage to secondary targets. So you can get this. Now, we're going to go into Guided Prayer. When your health is brought below 25%, you instantly cast a free Word of Glory at 60% effectiveness on yourself. So this will be very useful for when your health is getting low and all that. This will heal you off. But don't completely rely on that. You're going to need to be healing yourself with the Word of Glory and a Flash of Light if you're getting damaged. Now, Shield of Vengeance. This is important to get. Every Ret Paladin must have this, because it absorbs a certain amount of damage and all that for 10 seconds. Now, this here, we're going to go into Templar Strikes. because it makes Crusader Strike become a combo and all that. Now you're going to have more button mashing with this ability. I'll explain in a little bit. Then Spec into Divine Wrath increases the duration of Avenging Wrath or Crusade by 3 seconds. Now, here I like to spec into Crusade because of the haste and all that. Now, the reason why I spec into haste is because the more haste that your character has, the faster your damaging abilities get off of cooldown, and it will allow you to attack your enemies much faster and all that. I'll explain that too in a little bit. Now, Aegis of Protection, spec into this also. And then Wake of Ashes. This is another important Ret Paladin ability that all must have. So spec into this. This is going to be one of your good damage dealing abilities. Then spec into Seething Flames and also Truth's Weight, because Wake of Ashes also causes targets to burn for an additional 41,000 radiant damage. And now here is where you can decide for yourself which one you want to use. Me personally, I spec into Final Reckoning because I like it. Although it has a longer cooldown than Execution Sentence, you can spec into this if you want to also. Both are very good damage dealing abilities. Now, Divine Auxiliary. Final Reckoning and Execution Sentence grant 3 holy power, so you're going to want to spec into this. Now, for the last few, Adjudication, you're going to spec into this, because the critical strike damage of all your abilities will be increased by 5%, and Hammer of Wrath critically strikes cause a blessed hammer to spiral outward, dealing 3,500 holy strike damage to enemies. Next is Blades of Light. Crusader Strike, Judgment, Hammer of Wrath, and your damaging single target holy power abilities deal holy strike damage. Now the last one is Divine Arbiter. Abilities that deal holy strike damage deal 5% increased damage on casting abilities that deal holy strike damage, grants you a stack of Divine Arbiter. At 25 stacks, your damaging single target holy power ability causes 79,000 holy strike damage to your primary target and 15,000 holy strike damage to enemies within 6 yards. So that's very useful too. Spec into this. Okay, now moving on to the next part of the guide. Oh, and I forgot. Last thing now for talents is PvP talents. Now, Searing Glare is very useful because it blinds your enemies and it causes them to miss all of their spells and attacks. So casters and melee are going to be missing all of their spells and abilities cast on you, which this is very useful and helpful in PvP situations. Blessing of Sanctuary. I cannot stress how important this talent is because it removes all stun, silence, fear, and horror effects from the friendly target, or you could use it on yourself, and reduces the duration of other future effects by 60%. So this is very important. Please spec into this. Now last for PvP talents is Aura of Reckoning. At 100 stacks of Reckoning, your next weapon swing deals 200% increased damage. and will critically strike and activates Crusade for 9 seconds. So spec into Aura of Reckoning. This talent is very important, as are the other PvP talents. So now I'm going to be moving into abilities. Alright. Okay, so now we're going to get into the rotation. So you want to start off building your holy power with Templar Strike, Templar Slash, Templar Strike again, and then Final Verdict, Blade of Justice, but always make sure that you have Judgment applied first of all abilities. Judgment is going to cause all of your enemies to take 20% increased damage from your next holy power ability. So make sure you always have Judgment applied to your target. Final Verdict, Blade of Justice, Templar Strike, Final Verdict, and then you can use Divine Toll, Final Verdict, Wake of Ashes, which will build you up to 5 holy power, and then you can use Final Verdict again. Also, Final Reckoning, all damage is increased by 30% that you deal to your target from Final Reckoning. So what you're going to want to do is press Judgment first and then use Divine Reckoning so they get an even much bigger percentage of damage increased. And then now what we're going to go into now is the stats. Okay. For the stats. Now, what you're going to want to get gear that has haste. Make sure your PvP gear has haste and critical strike. Those are going to be the top 2 stats that you are going to need, but also mastery will be the 3rd least important stat you get. But don't neglect the mastery too much, but do your best to get your PvP gear to be most of all number 1 haste, and 2nd critical strike, and 3rd mastery. So I'm going to explain why you want to get into haste. Most importantly is because now what haste does is it reduces the global cooldowns on your damage dealing abilities like Judgment, Blade of Justice, and Templar Strike. Haste is going to reduce their cooldown, so you'll be able to attack again much faster instead of waiting around forever, instead of a person that doesn't spec into haste, because they're going to be waiting for their abilities much longer than you would if you weren't spec into haste. Haste is very important because it makes you be able to use your abilities again faster and attack much faster and all that. And now let's see, for enchants, for bracers, you're going to want enchanted plus 200 speed. For your cloak, you're going to want homebound speed as the enchant. And for boots, you're going to want Plains Runner's Breeze. And then for your legs, you can find different leg enchantments in the auction house. But right now, the one I have on Gives 151 agility or strength and 111 stamina. Now next, for your rings, you're going to want versatility, because let's just say that versatility increases all damage and healing done and all that. Now if you're PvPing, of course all of the PvP gear that you get is going to have versatility as the main stat. So make sure that you choose gear with haste first, and then critical strike, and then you can go into mastery when you've topped the first two stats. Okay, so now I'm going to go over macros next. Okay, now this is a macro that I created, and it is my one-shot macro. Why I call it my one-shot macro is because first you slash cast Crusade, and then you're going to slash use your PvP trinket, which increases your primary stat. And then here is the little secret that not many PvPers remember or are aware about, is there is this item, okay? It is called Saltwater Potion. What it does in Battlegrounds, it increases all damage done by 30%. So you can imagine this 30% increased damage along with Crusade, as its 10 stacks is being built, because each holy power spent during Crusade increases haste by an additional 3%. So if you max out those 10 stacks, you're going to be doing a lot of damage increased. And this is, I'm going to show it to you. Here is Crusade and the Gladiator's trinket being used. Now, Saltwater Potion normally will go off in a battleground, and you can use that as a very big advantage with your bursting macro. Now remember, always keep in mind to have Saltwater Potion in this macro. Slash cast Crusade or Avenging Wrath, slash use Verdant Gladiator's Badge of Ferocity, also with slash use Saltwater Potion. Now that's the little damage increasing trick here that I'm going to show to you guys. And before I go into where you can buy more Saltwater Potions, I'm going to go over one more macro. Now, this is a defensive macro. So if you're being damaged, here you're going to want to cast Divine Protection. And along with Divine Protection, you're going to want to use Potion of Defiance, because it reduces all damage taken by 20% for 12 seconds. Now, Divine Protection, which reduces damage taken by 30%. So then this Potion of Defiance has its own cooldown separated from Saltwater Potion. So reduces all damage taken by 20%. Add that with 30. You're going to have a 50% damage reduction in Battlegrounds. You cannot use these potions in arenas. They are not usable in arenas. Just to let you be aware of that. Okay, so now I'm going to show you where to get these Saltwater Potions. Okay, so where to get the saltwater potion and potion of defiance. Not many people remember or know where this vendor is at, so we're in Stormwind. You're going to take the portal to Borealis. So we just took the portal to Borealis. Now, okay. Now, on your map, the vendor is going to be around this area here. Okay? Now I'm going to show you. You go this way, over here. Actually, sorry, it's around this area here, at the war headquarters. Now you go into here, right? This is the vendor, right here, Marshall Fraser. Now you can buy saltwater potions and potion of defiance and other PvP things. But right now we're gonna buy about maybe, I don't know, well, let's just get like 60 of these saltwater potions. Now, most likely, if you're that kind of PvPer that you have so many marks of honor just sitting in your bag, you can come over here to this location and buy these potions. Now, I'm just gonna get maybe 30 of these potion of defiance. Okay, so now that you have your potion for your macros, do not forget to always have that potion edited into the macro so you can do the best possible damage that you can in PvP. Okay, now pretty much I've covered most of everything. So now there aren't much Ret Paladin guides out there, so I decided to make one, and I hope that you can use what I've shown you here to the best of your knowledge in PvP and all that, so you can be a much greater Ret Paladin. And so yeah, pretty much that's basically all I wanted to cover. So thank you very much for watching this guide, and I hope with the macros and what I've shown you, the talents, the stats, and the rest of everything, that you found it out to be very helpful and informative. So yes, thank you for all those that are watching, and have a great day.